Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Power of Story podcast. This is Dashaun, Vice President of Self-Published in 30 Days. And I'm joined today by a very special guest. This is someone I consider a brother, an ally on this mission to serve and help former athletes as they transition into the next steps of their lives. We got a great story for you today. Coach Q Williams is a men's coach who helps men ignite their inner fire so they can champion their purpose after sport. Coach Q, welcome to the podcast.
Taj, thank you so much for having me. Self-Published 30 Days team. Thank you. I'm so blessed to be here.
Hey, man, we just want to dive right in. This is also going on the Thrive After Sports podcast because your story is so inspirational, and we're going to take a deep dive into some of the work that you're doing now. Can you just quickly just give the listeners a little bit of why you're doing the work? Well, let's talk about what you're doing with your coaching program first, and then we'll dive into the story leading up to that. But what is it that you actually do for these male former athletes currently?
Yeah, so the why will definitely inform this, of course, but my focus right now is supporting former athletes with essentially identifying like what their purpose is and finding a way to really use the purpose and passion, like the fire like that they had as an athlete, like literally watching someone like fully like unleashed on the football field, the basketball court, wherever it was, and applying that to life. I do that in a few different ways: one-on-one coaching, also group programming. I have a 6-week group program that had several former athletes in, and it's just a pleasure. It's a gift to really be able to give my experience and share with people what I think is really pivotal and foundational to thriving after sport, which is really, figuring out what you really care about. And that's what we focus most of my work on.
That's awesome, Q. And, I've had the privilege of being able to get a sneak peek at some of the work you've been doing in your current Ignite program. I was able to be a part of the last one, the one that you have finishing up right now. And I could just tell everyone listening firsthand, this is next level transformational work. There were times where I was tuned in to some of the calls and some of the work that Coach Q was doing, and I was getting emotional because he's really digging beneath the surface and really diving deep, not just on the surface level of what is it that you want to do with your life, but how can you become a better human being? How can you become a better man? And that's why I have so much respect for what you're doing, man. Can you talk a little bit about what actually led you into doing this work? Obviously, you're a former athlete at Northwestern. You played football and baseball there, correct?
Yeah. So I was a 2-sport athlete all my life. I can kind of boil it down to when I was like 6 or 7. I had just moved to Pittsburgh, a new town, and went out for a baseball tryouts. Well, not tryouts. It was just like, join a baseball team, and everyone, everyone lines up for the first time. One guy across from one another. I remember I was standing on the third baseline of the baseball field out in the outfield, and I just started throwing the baseball back and forth. And all of a sudden, the coaches started coming over to me, and all the dads started coming over to me. Like, they started noticing that I'm throwing harder than the rest of the kids. And I'm like, I didn't even know that I had this gift, right? But I really feel like that moment really cemented my life beyond that, because I started to realize in that moment, I have a gift. I'm special. There's something here that's making me unique. And, coming from a different town into a new town, trying to make friends and trying to find my community, at the young age of like 6, 7 years old, pretty ripe age to really like come into myself. So my identity got really caught up in sport from then on. I went out for football the following year, started playing tackle football at a young age, and baseball and football became a huge cornerstones of my life. So I played defensive end in football. I was a pitcher and outfielder in baseball. That carried me all the way through high school into college. And along the way, I had some trauma in my life. My mom passed away when I was younger, and I think that always sort of stuck with me. And a lot of the fire and passion that I talk about, like that guys have on the football field, I had that like times 10 in high school. Like I had that big time. My passion and purpose was all fueled by a lot of anger and a lot of upsetness, right, from my mom passing. And I think after sport, I struggled a lot with like where to devote that energy. I actually became really pretty afraid of it because football is such a violent game, right? So I'm exerting myself on the football field, getting a lot of that energy out, a lot of that anger out, just effort, you know. And I was good at it. It fueled my life. It got me to an incredible place of scholarship, you know, football and baseball. And you know, when that was all over, I never wanted to identify myself as a jock, you know, as like, you know, just an athlete, just a guy who plays sports. So I always took school incredibly seriously. I went to a, you know, basically an Ivy League level school. I went to Northwestern in Chicago, and as much as I tried to be someone outside of sports, sports was what I did. It's where I spent the majority of my time and energy. So transitioning out of sport was tough for me. And figuring out who I was before sports came into my life has always been tough, you know? So a lot of the work that I do comes back to that. Like, what is my innate value outside of the things that I do? Who am I, you know? When you get asked the question, Taj, like, you know, who are you? A lot of people will resort to what they do, right? Like what they did, you know, all leading up to their life. Or if you ask them to go a little bit deeper, maybe they'll tell you where they came from or, you know, where they grew up. But what I really want to know is, who are you? You know, who's Taj underneath all of that? And so I ask myself that question constantly. And that all, you know, really emotional intelligence really actually was born for me out of a struggle. I was struggling with post-concussion syndrome. I was struggling with this idea of concussions potentially having a severe impact on the mental health of former athletes. And I knew that emotional intelligence would be a tool, but I didn't expect to actually experience it myself. I experienced like some of the serious pitfalls of post-concussion syndrome. I would come out of vision therapy appointments really, really frustrated, wanting to jerk the wheel after my appointments, like so down and out and in a dark place. And I knew, I also saw like former teammates of mine taking their lives after successful college or pro careers. And I just finally had enough of it, enough of my own struggle, enough of other guys' struggle. And I waited about 7 years to start a business, and now I finally have, and it's sustaining me, and I'm able to you know, build it, bring in people like Utah, like other coaches, and really grow the impact that we can have, not only to support and fuel former athletes, you know, fuel that fire, but also like create a big impact. I think as former athletes, we have such an opportunity. We have this experience of being such powerful leaders, being fully in our element. And that fire I'm talking about, like, I want that fire to be unleashed on the world in a powerful way and an impactful way. So I'm the reason I founded this thing called World Class is because I want to support world-class athletes in becoming world-class leaders outside of sport. So that's why I do it. It's been a personal journey. It's been a broader journey to support former athletes around me. And that's my why. Yeah.
Man, Q, everything you just shared is so powerful on so many different levels. I'm over here. I have a page full of notes just for things that I wanted to.
I kind of rambled for a little bit there, didn't I?
Hey, man, no, you were just telling your story and speaking from the heart, and I think it was all very powerful and all very useful information for anyone to hear. And I always think it's a beautiful thing, you know, and I hope people listening can take from your story that you were able to turn painful experiences that you went through into something that is now your purpose. And I always think that's a beautiful thing when you can go back and help others overcome and go through something that you've gone through yourself. And not only that, but just the way you've actually been able to execute on it has been great to see also. You know, something that you talked about being 7 years old, and that was the first time you got acknowledged. I always say that, you know, as former athletes, we were raised by the game. You know, we all started playing young and went through it. And then the tragic loss of your mother, as you brought up, man, and sports being your outlet for that. So not only not having the outlet of that with your identity, but also the outlet for all
Mm-hmm.
the pain that you had stored up inside over the years, to have that
Yeah.
stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
Just wow, man. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about the post concussion symptoms that you were experiencing? Like what has been, obviously you've done a lot of work, a lot of internal work, and this is the same work that you're helping people with in your programs now. With that, what were some of the other symptoms you experienced, and what is that road to kind of managing those and improving those symptoms been like for you?
That's an awesome question. It leads me deeper into the why for me, like why emotional intelligence. So my symptoms were, I was on a journey of a good 5 years where it's a constant journey. I'm not fully like, recovered from post-concussion syndrome. There's a lot of, varying opinions about that. Like I'm probably going to have some sort of symptoms for the rest of my life, just like any other football player would, like constantly kind of have a bit of a headache, I mean, from hitting our heads against each other all those years. But
Yeah.
like what I had specifically was like a vision distortion. And I didn't realize this until a couple of years into my journey, but I would walk into grocery stores feeling extremely just like overwhelmed, like just and frustrated. I couldn't tell what I was really feeling. And, this really speaks into like how tough it is for a lot of guys to identify and articulate what they're feeling. It's hard enough to identify it. It's just as hard to articulate it. So some of the work that I really do is like honing in on, okay, slowing down and experiencing what I'm experiencing. Okay, I'm in a grocery store. I feel frustrated. Why do I feel frustrated? Okay. I keep moving and it feels like the stuff around me is moving still. Like there's two of everything. I basically had double vision, it turned out. So when I finally slowed down enough, saw the right people, I was able to identify that I was experiencing nausea. I was experiencing anxiety. I was experiencing, because my vision was essentially seeing double, my eyes were working hard, and therefore my neck was really tight because the muscles that attach to our eyes are at the top of our spine. So that can create a lot of neck tension. And I had a lot of that. And so I would get all these things going on at once, just by going to a grocery store.
Right.
Similar things would happen, for instance, like doing a big workout. I just like spatially oriented, it would be really tough for me to calm down after those. I would get nauseous, anxious, a lot of tightness in my neck, and anger, like anger would come out. And for a long time, I was really afraid of that anger. I was afraid of like what that could do to somebody. But I started to really repurpose that into passion, right? That's really what it is. And so, but my journey for post-concussion syndrome was all those symptoms I just mentioned. And I started to seek the right support in a vision therapist. So there's not many people that specialize in this, but it's developmental optometry. And they don't just look at my eyes like 20/20, they look at how they work together. So with how I can look at something 100 yards away and then focus in on something that's a foot away. How I can look from left to right, how I can look when my head's moving, when I'm walking, when I'm moving. All of those were really compromised for me, and it created a lot of symptoms. So vision therapy helped me tremendously. However, it created a symptomatic environment for me. It tested my limits of my eyes. And so it created symptoms. It's like doing physical therapy. It hurts, it can hurt sometimes. So I had all these symptoms, and I would come out of these vision therapy appointments really, really frustrated and like very symptomatic, essentially. And it was confusing because like I couldn't tell whether these symptoms were like normal everyday life kind of things, like working life sort of thing, being in the working world, or if it was my symptoms, if it was related to post-concussion syndrome. So that was a super confusing time in my life, and still does confuse me from time to time, right? Can't tell if my headache is from overworking or sitting in front of a screen and my eyes having to work. So what happened was I was pretty symptomatic. I had gone back in, I relapsed basically a few times and gone back in for more treatments and therapy. And all of a sudden I had somebody reach out to me and I entered this leadership development training. I had been doing men's work and emotional awareness work for a long time, but I hadn't really dove into emotional intelligence, where I started really confronting things. And I had someone that was literally hired to be a mirror for me, be a coach, and give me direct feedback and really help me see the way that I had been living my life. And in that training, I really started to realize very quickly, in one specific experience that I can't really share, but this one specific experience had me confront everything in my life up until now, up until that day. And it had me confront what was left undone, what was left unsaid, and when it came down to it, I hadn't done the things I wanted to do. I had let a lot of things help hold me back, hold me hostage. The reason I waited so long was because I was trying to fight against this disease or this concussion problem or my own struggle. And when I started focusing on what I could provide, what value I could create, what purpose I could stand for instead of stand against, I started acting from that place the following week. I walked out of that training room completely focused on what's ahead, what's next, what's my next mountain, how can I serve? And I operated from that place. And I went back into my optometrist that following week, and he saw a dramatic difference in the way that my symptoms were presenting. I no longer had, I was basically kind of healed overnight from his perspective. And it was a bit of a miracle, right? But I knew that I experienced it too. Like after that exercise, after finally taking full responsibility for my future, I noticed that my vision was clear. I noticed that I didn't have headache. I noticed that I wasn't moody anymore. It would come up once in a while, but it was subtle, And in that moment, I realized that the power of emotional intelligence and the power of mindset, power of attitude, really, it actually goes back to sport. Like, how does attitude inform your playing performance? Like when I play baseball, it's 90% mental. The rest of it is swinging and throwing, like it's super simple. Such a mental game. And that's really how I feel about life. So that is why I focus on emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, is because it's supported me so much.
Right. And see, this is why, for everybody listening, this is why I wanted to have Coach Q on the show, right? Not only the power of story, but Thrive After Sports, because what you're hearing, like Q, the fact that you were able to face these things, right? Like you said, it was not only seeking out help for yourself, but because you took the bumps and the bruises of facing yourself, looking in the mirror, saying, I'm going to get some help with this. And then going through the struggles of actually getting the help. Like you said, like vision therapy it's like physical therapy in a sense. Mm-hmm. It is physical therapy for the eyes, for your head, all that stuff. The fact that you were able to do that and get the coaching, the emotional intelligence work done is what enables you not only to heal yourself, but to be able to take all the information you've learned and pass it on to others. And that's what's so inspirational about your story. That's why we're even here in the first place. Something that I don't hear it talked about a lot, and probably because we both know guys are probably scared to come forward and talk about the symptoms they're having. And here you are letting people know these are the symptoms I'm having. So everybody listening right now, former football players who've experienced traumatic brain injury, post-concussion syndrome, now you know you're not alone. Listen to what Q is telling you. There's help out there. Reach out to Q. Look into some of the resources that he's giving you. Man, I was just having lunch yesterday with one of my best friends. Named Dashaun Irabor, right? And this guy started all 4 years at Arizona State. Him and I were just talking about this, man, how difficult it was for us to adapt after college. I would find myself stammering over words and stuff, like trying to find words. We obviously lost a lot of brain cells, or even mood swings was big for me, man. I had to learn how to manage that by, taking things like CBD or just working out a lot, doing things to kind of manage my mood. Otherwise, I would have spurts of anger and just lash out and stuff and I'm sure you've experienced some of that too. Anyway, man, you're doing so much great work. I want to make sure I dive into that. I know you have another group coaching program coming up in November, right? The November squad, the Ignite squad. Can you just talk about, so if I'm someone who, I want to get some work in with Coach Q, I want to join the coaching program. And I believe you have 5 slots left going into November, right?
Yeah, so actually my one-on-one coaching, I have 4 slots actually as of today. So I have four
Okay.
slots available basically to start between now and November. And then yes, my group coaching program is 6 weeks long, and that starts the first week of November.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that
Everybody's
that
gonna be
that
mad
that
at me.
actually has about I'm looking to get like 8 to 12 in there, 8 to 12
Okay.
guys. Yeah.
All right. I was gonna say everybody's gonna be mad at me that I didn't have you on sooner because now November's coming up. We only got 2 weeks. You better act fast, folks. But anyway, what can people expect? Like I already said, I got to experience some of Coach Q's work firsthand. He, gave me a glimpse into everything he's doing. I think it's phenomenal work. And what can people expect when they join Ignite? Like what kind of, I know you mentioned the breath work, emotional
Yeah.
intelligence. What is, I know you can't give everything away, the full details, but what does it actually look like from like a high level view?
Yeah. So Ignite is designed around essentially giving folks a accelerated version of my one-on-one coaching. And when I do one-on-one coaching, it's like a good 4 month to 6 month commitment, so this is a 6 week version of that. It's an accelerated version. And the way that we're able to get so much done in such little time is that there's a community aspect. So much of what guys come to me for is accountability, a sense of team, a sense of camaraderie. And when I say I'm going to do something or I say I want something, hold me to that. So the fact that there's a group of guys in there that have a shared experience is honestly like half the value of the program. Like how valuable is it just to have people that are in your corner that get it and that you can share your heart with, really. That's the biggest value I've gotten from men's group work, where I lead men's groups, is just feeling like people actually care, feeling like I'm understood, feeling like there's a shared experience is one of the most healing things a guy can experience. Most guys right now are super isolated, especially due to COVID. But in our day-to-day life, we tend to isolate a lot as guys, and we tend to hold things in and pretend that, holding it in is normal, right? We don't have to hold it in. We don't have to rely on only ourselves. So I would say that the group aspect brings people back to that team and that sense of I have support, and that's huge. On top of that, I will say, and let me know, Taj, if the internet kicks out at all, but I think we're good.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah, the other piece is structurally the way it works is there's 90-minute calls, 6 weeks straight, and then there's 30-minute one-on-one calls that each student gets with me. So I get to work with them one-on-one for 30 minutes each week. And each week we will go over essentially a different topic. The pillars of my program are broken down into first focusing on vision, like identity. Who am I after sport? How have I been defining myself after sport? How have I been measuring my success after sport? A lot of us adopt these sort of like societal, determinations or definitions of what success is. Any old human can do that, but coming out of sport, you tend to do it more often because all you knew was sports. And so you're just adopting what you see around you in the real world. We're used to having results and having goals and having missions, but rarely do we actually come out of sports and define what those are. Because there's no longer a starting spot to earn. There's no longer a record to beat. There's no longer a team to beat out. We have to make those new definitions for ourselves, whether it's a competitor in the market, whether it's, earning that manager position. But it's really coming down to like understanding why, those results matter. And that's where identity comes in. That's where like my true core identity, not what society or what sport put on me as like success, but like, how do I define success? What's going to make me happy at the end of the day? So we spent 2 weeks on that, the first 2 weeks. And then there is a breathwork component in there. I'll keep it secret and not share the type of breathwork that we do, because that's super important. But there's definitely some exercises that really support guys in identifying what they're all about. And then we focus on 2 big aspects, which is relationships and habits. I've always been a big believer, like and my identity doesn't mean much if I'm in a cave. You know, like where my identity means something and my vision means something is when other people are involved. We all really just want to give our heart away and give our work to the world. So how can I form relationships in a meaningful way? How can I listen carefully? How can I be understood, communicate in a way that articulates my feelings in an emotionally intelligent way? So that's powerful and impactful, just to feel understood. That's kind of the group component I mentioned earlier. The third pillar is habits. So it could be as simple as like, what is my diet? What is my workout routine after sport? Do I have to eat 4,000 calories anymore and work out for 2 hours? No. I'll give you the short answer. Like, you don't have to do that. So what are the habits that are supporting you? Is it waking up on time? Is it having a tough conversation once a week at least, right? Pushing into discomfort. What's your relationship like with discomfort? My program, we're constantly taking this work out of the box and into our lives and challenging ourselves. So getting uncomfortable so that we can really achieve that flow state. And the third, that's the first 4 pillars. So we talked about identity and vision. We talked about relationships, habits, and then we're talking about just action overall. So taking this and actually putting it into real life. Without committed action, everything that we talk about in this program is just a dream. So a cool idea. So that's what the program looks like. Yes, there is breath work included. Structurally, it's, one-on-one calls. It's the 90-minute workshops there. It's super experiential. There's a good amount of lecturing, right, and teaching from my side, but it's mostly coaching. It's mostly, me evoking guys to really share from their hearts and come up with their own solutions. Really, I think that's what I've learned most is powerful about coaching, is that everyone has that compass within them. Everyone has the fire and the compass. So it's just a matter of like activating that with some powerful questions.
Right. That's amazing, Q. I think, aside from all the amazing work, all the amazing content that's in there, all the amazing coaching they get, and everything they get out of the feedback from having that community, just even what you said at the beginning, just having that accountability and community alone is priceless, let alone everything that they're actually getting through going through it. Because like you said, we came up in that community of athletes. We're used to that locker room environment, especially, I know this happens with all athletes, but I know your work is tailored specifically for male athletes. And as you know, as men, we're the ones who have the most trouble. Like, we go from being a part of this unit to being the lone wolf and trying to figure everything out and feel like we have to do everything on our own. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you've created and you're continuing to create. And on that note, obviously you're already doing so much great work. What is the future of Ignite? What is the future of World Class? What is the future of everything that you're doing? How do you see this unfolding and growing and expanding? Like, what is the big picture thing that you see your work leading towards in the either immediate future or just down the line?
Yeah. Great question. I always say people say the words "great question" when they're kind of thinking of the answer. That's kind of like a way to buy time. So to be direct, like, honestly, like, Taj, I'm in the middle of it. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, my one-on-one coaching is incredibly impactful. I want to get that to more and more people, be able to support more people. So I'm currently stepping away from my corporate job to focus on this full time and dedicate to more guys. And the group coaching is a great way to taste what it's like to do one-on-one coaching. It's a great way to get some transformation in a short period of time and really create some rapid growth. So those 2 programs are my main focus. What I see is Ignite really growing and expanding. And all this is going to umbrella under World Class, which is going to be my LLC. So that's the bigger vision. That's going to house multiple coaches. It's going to house multiple programs, not just an Ignite program, but what's after that? How do I support guys in maybe starting a business if they want to start a business? How do I support them with more specific items like relationships? So offering different tools and services and really bringing the whole team together, because there's a lot of people doing this work. There's not quite enough right now, but there's growing demand for it. And I really see, like joining forces with a lot of really good people to bring this to more and more people.
Right. Hey, man, I love the fact that you said you're so focused on what you're doing right now. Because most people, like, if I were to ask a question, or most people get the question, what is your long-term vision? What are you working on? What are you building towards? They might even, if they don't have something mapped out already, they might try to come up with something on the spot. What I love is that you were like, man, I'm so immersed in what I'm doing right now and the people I'm helping right now that I know it's leading somewhere. I have a general idea, but I really like that you touched on that, because that just shows like how focused you actually are on doing the work. I think some people can lose, the forest for the trees, thinking they're looking at the big picture a little too much rather than doing what they set out to do. And that's one thing I loved about you from the very beginning, man. Something else you said that I don't want to bypass. For sure, man.
Actually, if you don't mind, I want to add to that. You made me think of a couple of things. So the longer term vision of world class is actually to coming up pretty soon. I'm going to have a chance to do some form of like this training for current athletes that are graduating. Okay. So I really want to support current athletes with getting this sort of opportunity instead of late in the game in their late 20s. Like, get this support when they're graduating. So supporting college seniors, also supporting college football and basketball programs, like directly. How can you connect more intimately with your teammates? How can you create more than just locker room talk, but actual connection with your teammates? That's something I really want to support current athletes with, so that we're not, behind the curve by the time we're like 30 years old and we're trying to figure out our lives, So right. That's what I really see possible. I also see a huge parallel with the athlete transition compared to the veteran transition. I have a lot of friends in the veteran community, special forces community, that have had similar rough spots, not only with their transition, but also with traumatic brain injury. TBI is like plaguing our military veterans, and as well as a lot of former athletes. So I see a lot of parallels there, and combining some work and drawing in more and more guys. I could even see myself supporting women, but right now it's for me, the sports that I played were men's team sports, and it just feels right now. So yeah, just wanted to add a few carrots there as you were talking.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. And another thing you touched on that I think is huge is where you mentioned there are not a lot of resources for the athletes that we're working with. And that made me think of how important it is to not be afraid to collaborate, right? I think back to so many athletes, especially men, we have ego where we come from a team sport. That's what we love. And we get out and we might start a new venture, but we're trying to do it all on our own and see other people as competition. So for anybody listening, and this is Power of Story or Thrive After Sports, we have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this, right? Don't be afraid just because someone is in the same industry. Learn to look at people as allies. Q and I, we serve the same audience through our athlete transition coaching, right? We could easily get into this, oh, he's taking clients away from me. Like, here I am interviewing Q and saying how much I think his program is valuable and wanting people to go check out what Q is doing, because I know that I'm not going to be able to do it all by myself. Q knows that he's not going to be able to do it. It takes a village of people to be able to come together and say, we're all on this mission together. So don't let ego get in the way of you collaborating with people who can end up being allies, and you all can grow together. And especially if you're doing something that's new, right? You might, like Q and I, what we're doing is essentially we're building an industry, all right? This whole athlete transition services, and this is an industry that didn't really exist before. It's in the spotlight now. My point is, just to wrap it up before I get on my soapbox, everybody do not be afraid to collaborate. Don't let ego get in the way. Make sure that you're aligning yourself with people and supporting each other and helping each other grow. Like that's what this is all about, because we need each other when it's all said and done,
Absolutely. It's how we get the most work done. It's how we get the best work done. This is really all about just finding our best. And I don't believe that, one, you can really find your best without a coach, without someone in your corner, ideally more than one person. And I don't think that you can really find your best without collaborating, and having, it only builds the volume of our message by working together. So I'm super blessed to have an aligned path and parallel path with you. And yeah, I'll always continue to promote what you do too. I think what you do is incredible. So yeah, the more the merrier, man. The more people we can access, I'm all about it.
For sure, man. Well, hey, Q, you already know I'm grateful for you too, man. But I don't want to sit here and just have a bromance at the end of it, because I can talk about you for another hour, man. I do have one final question as we wrap up. But before I even ask that question, man, can you please tell people how they can learn more about the work you're doing, where they can get in touch with you, all that good stuff? Please just share with everybody that information.
Yeah, thanks. The two ways you can get in touch with me is over Instagram. I run a lot of content on there, a lot of free information. So it's Q Williams _. Q Williams _. So that's Q as in Quentin, Williams. I tend to repeat myself, _. And then my website is q-williams.com. q-williams.com.
Right. And all the links to your other social media and stuff is on there too. So that's perfect. We'll have all that information in the show notes. Please go check out Q's content. Even just go back and look at some of the live videos he's done, or IGTV videos. Go back and look at some of those. Great information that you want to check out. I mean, just countless. I mean, every time I go on there, man, you're doing something. You're either going live with somebody, or you got an IGTV video that you put out, or you're jumping in the ice bath or doing something crazy, man. Like, I love it. I love to see it, man. I love to see it. My final question for you, Q, is, and you kind of alluded to this with everything you're doing with the transitioning athletes, but I'm just talking about Quentin Williams, the man, right? When you leave this earth, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to say about Q when you're no longer here?
Can I swear on this show?
Hey, man, be free. Be you, Q.
I want people to know I gave a shit. You know? I just want them to know that I cared and that I was there. That's really all I want. That's the biggest thing. So whatever that looks like, I think that probably looks like being of service, being present for the people I love. I just want to be known for caring, for being there. Yeah, it's a good question.
Well, congratulations, Q. You've already accomplished that, man. I think it's very clear right now that people know you give a shit, man. At the very least. At the very least. And you're just getting warmed up, man. You haven't even left the locker room yet. You know what I mean? You're just getting warmed up. Hey, man, well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again for coming on the show. Everyone, please, as I said, the information to get in touch with Q will be in the show notes. Please get in touch with this man. And Q, just thank you again for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for being a brother. It's hard to believe that it's been over 2 years at this point since we got connected with each other. But thank you for being a brother and an ally on this mission that we're both on. And I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Always love chatting with you. So let's keep it up. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely, brother. All right, man. Take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. See ya.